welcome the City of Sugar Land City Council meeting for Tuesday, December the 17th. A little bit about our agenda tonight. In just a minute, we're going to have an invocation and the pledge by Nashed Kermali. That'll be followed by a recognition, and then we'll move into public comment part. I noticed that there are many of you that have signed up to speak, and everybody will be given a chance. We'll do that during the public comment part of, as long as it's an agenda item, it is. Welcome to the members of the Maryam Islamic Center. I think a number of you are from the center. With that, we're going to go, Nashed, if you'll lead us in the invocation and the pledge, please.
Will you please bow your head as I pray? Dear God, first, let me say thank you on behalf of all of us who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. God, as we are in the midst of the holiday season, we ask that you watch over our first responders of our great city and all of our armed forces who allow us our freedom. As our citizens travel out of our city and visitors enter our city over the holidays, we ask that you keep everyone safe and pray for safe travels. We ask that you guide us along the right path. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and for the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started tonight, I want to not only welcome everybody, but wish everybody a Merry Christmas. This will be our last council meeting before we start the new year in 2020, so it's a pretty important meeting to us. We have a recognition, and I'd like to ask Raina to come up, Karen Ramirez, Rachel Owens, and Hun Cham Soon. Who wants to do the honors, Raina?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We are very proud to receive the ICMA Certificate of Distinction for Performance Management. This is actually the first for the city. We are also one of only 19 to receive this certification. The certification was received for our city's emphasis on providing comparative and benchmarking information to the public and the use of performance data and strategic planning and operational decision-making, which is consistent with our Sugar Land Way. And part of the Sugar Land Way is being responsive to the needs of residents and ensuring they can easily access information, data, and services that improve the quality of life. So a big part of what the Office of Performance and Accountability does is we look at ways of how we can help departments, one, promote efficiencies, but always look at ways that we can continue to do better and provide efficient services to our residents. We do this through a quarterly goal measures update that we do on our city's dashboard. We also provide, we do performance measurements and also operational and departmental assessments. The staff here, Karen, Rachel, and Hunshem, provide assessments to many of our departments, and we also look at ways that we can continue to improve services and processes throughout the organization. So once again, we are very honored. We did receive this award at the 105th ICMA conference over the last fall.
Thank you, Raina. For those of you that don't know, the ICMA is the International City Managers Association, and we've been recognized. This is the first time for this. Alan actually earlier this year received recognition as the City Manager of the Year. So it's an organization that staff participates in, and we have a lot of history with that organization. And this is couldn't get it out without breaking it. Maybe we just hold it. Because I can break it, I promise you. It can be broke real. If we could just, everybody could stand. Oh, there you go, Ryan.
Are you ready? Everyone looking up here, please? We're going to take 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Last one. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Rana, congratulations. You know, the other thing I'd mention is we talk a lot about the fact that we run the city like a business. The metrics for every department, those parameters that we use to judge progress and success, Rana works with the senior management team to come up with those metrics. That's the importance of not only the award, but of what her group does. Go ahead and keep this. I see that we have a Boy Scout in the audience. If we could get you to stand up, tell us your name and what troop you're from and what badge you're working on. I think I caught you on surprise. Welcome. Okay. Thank you. Before we move to item number 1, I wanted to recognize some of our guests. We have the imam from the Maryam Islamic Center, Muhammad Ahmad Khan. Welcome. Anwar Walawala. Anwar. Kenneth Poe. Kenneth, I know you're out there somewhere too. And then Hakeem, I know you've been a resident for a long time, but we don't get to see you very often. Welcome. Let's go to item number 1, which is a public comment. Item number 1 is reserved for items on the agenda. Anybody that would like to speak to any one of these items, some people filled out a form. If you didn't fill out a form and you want to speak, you're still going to be allowed to come to the podium and speak. So we'll be respectful. Everybody will have 3 minutes. There is no limit to the number of people. So I'm going to go ahead and start with who I have on the list. Anwar, you're first up. Come on up, give us your name, address, and then what you want to speak on.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Zimmerman and respected City Council members. My name is Anwar Wadiwala. I'm a director of Maryam Islamic Center. Majority of Maryam Center congregants are residents of Sugar Land. We have over 70 doctors, nurses, in addition of over 40 engineers and 300 businessmen who contribute generously to our beautiful city of Sugar Land. Our community is very vibrant and always ready to help our neighbors. With the help of last County Commissioner Patterson, we have put street lights on Sartasha Road. We are paying all the bills. After the major fire that happened a couple of years ago in Victory Gymnastic, our community members got together and raised over $15,000. Those funds were donated to the owner of the Victory facility. We have joined hands with Houston Food Bank to help our neighbors. Our volunteers load and unload the food from the trucks and help distribute them in our neighborhood. We also serve our community by offering free after-school tutoring. Every year we distribute over 500 school backpack full of supplies in our neighborhood schools. Safety of our congregants and our children is our top priority. We request you to please consider these vital services for health and safety of our beloved city of Sugar Land. And I urge each and every one of you to do the right thing for the safety of the residents of Sugar Land. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. The second individual that we'll have is the Imam Muhammad Ahmad Khan. Muhammad.
Honorable Mayor, I would like to begin by thanking you and the honorable members of the City of Sugar Land Council. We congratulate and welcome this opportunity of inclusivity. As the strands of the sugarcane plant work seamlessly to provide strength and sweetness, so too are the members of Maryam Islamic Center part and parcel of the strands that beautify and strengthen our beloved city of Sugar Land. A center built upon inclusivity, love, and above all else, service to humanity. The Maryam Islamic Center community has established a vested interest in the city of Sugar Land because we already consider the city of Sugar Land home. And it truly already is home for the vast majority of our congregants, your citizens. We have added to the sweetness of the city both when it has called upon us and also when standing in solidarity with humanity has compelled us. Maryam Islamic Center continues to assist our neighbors with material and financial support, as our beloved director, Mr. Waliwala, has mentioned. Our religion does not allow us to sleep in contentment while our neighbors suffer, and thus to serve for us, Your Honor, is a matter of great magnitude. Our grounds always provide a safe and welcoming space for all, irrespective of faith, gender, social class, and or ethnicity. In fact, we have many people who make use of our basketball court as it provides them with a safe and welcoming space to play. Your Honor, our humble appeal to you today is to not only accept us as your brothers and sisters in humanity, but to welcome us home, where we always have belonged, and to allow us to continue sweetening our beloved city of Sugar Land. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our third guest tonight is Kenneth Poe. Kenneth?
Greetings and hello. My name is Kenneth Poe. I'm the Public Relations Coordinator for the Maryam Center. And I'd like to bring this opportunity to y'all that the Maryam Center is growing as far as the community center. I'll try this again, take two. Let me start this way. I'm not a Muslim, but I am a member of the community. I was born a Christian. I was baptized by Dr. Ed Young in the Second Baptist Church. People ask me, why are you with the Muslim community then? Because my grandfather always told me, you are your brother's keeper, each one teach one. And they're like my brothers and sisters. And I'm here before you right now, pleading with y'all to actually vote yes on this agenda. Because the kids play outside. That's not right. And the community center is going to provide them an opportunity to play inside. And it's, the congregation is at its capacity. It is not to, as they say, grow the congregation. The congregation is confined in little spaces. And Mayor, you've been there when we had events outside, and the weather is very threatening. And so everything's going to be brought inside. It's also a library. It's also a computer room and a gymnasium and whatnot for the children. Because they say the children are our future. And so that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Kenneth. Our next guest is Robert Brooks.
Robert Brooks, on 4710 Thompson Chapel. The Maryam Mosque, they have helped me. They have helped most of the people that live in the mosque, in Thompson Chapel.
Yes, sir.
I've received backpacks, things that they have given me to give to the community. They have offered a service for paying light bills, anybody that need light bills. There are several things they've done. They put street lights there for us. They paid it. They helped us a lot, so we need the water. We need things that, whatever and they help us a lot. And I also help them. So I ask for y'all to vote yes for them. Yeah.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay.
Our next guest is Hakeem Olajuwon. Natalie, you may need to give him a mic. Give him a microphone. Make it a little bit easier. I don't think that thing's going to reach up there. She's got a mic for you right next to her. There you go.
Way down there. Thank you so much, Mayor. It's my honor. This is an experience for me. Just like you said, I've been living there for many years, over 30 years now. I don't see Mayor too often. So it must have been a matter of importance to a member of a very University just to appeal the service that the Maryam University is one of the ideal model for our community. And most of the members in the area, the Sugarland area, and a lot of professionals, showing leadership, how to be civil, be a good neighbor. So that's why when they asked me if I can participate in this, I said, of course, it's an obligation for me. So I really hope that you consider that this is a very important matter for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hakeem, it's not very often you get the back cleanup, is it? In a different sport. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any of the agenda items that are before us tonight? Second call. Thanks to all of our guests. We're going to move to item number 2, review the consent agenda. Item number 3, consent agenda. All these items are going to be taken as in one motion, unless a council member wants to pull an item, at which time we'll pull the item. We'll take it after we take the other items, and then we'll have a brief presentation. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved, Mayor.
Second.
Got a motion by Gandhi, second by McCutcheon. If you vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you. Item number 4, contracts and agreements. 4A, consideration of an action on authorizing the execution of a development agreement by and among the City of Sugar Land, Texas, North America Islamic Trust, Inc., and Islamic Society of Greater Houston, Incorporated, for the city to provide water and wastewater services within its extraterritorial jurisdiction. Lisa Kosich-Meyer, our Director of Planning. Lisa.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Council. So for you, we are back with this item for you this evening. I'll be doing a brief review of the background on this item, overview with you the service request for utilities to the ETJ, recap the previous agreement points that we've outlined with you, but then also overview the revisions that we have made since the item's been last before you. And then this item is before you for your consideration and approval of authorization of an agreement. So just a little bit of background. We first workshopped this item with you back in November. We reviewed with you existing code and policy guidance related to utility requests and development in our extraterritorial jurisdiction, or the ETJ. We overviewed the service request that the Maryam Center had brought forward to us. We outlined the approach that we were recommending and some draft development agreement points. And at that time, City Council concurred with our approach and directed us to proceed with the agreement. This item was on your agenda for consideration at your December 3rd meeting. However, the item was tabled to allow staff time to work on some modifications to the agreement to provide some flexibility for working on some alternative routes for the water and wastewater connection alignments. We have done that, and so this item is back before you for your consideration. All of the previous agreement terms are still preserved as part of the agreement. However, we've also revised to allow for some flexibility to determine the appropriate alignment for a water line. So here again, just to recap, the Maryam Islamic Center is located here within what we call as the New Territory Out-Tract or Donut Hole. It's approximately 19 acres, but it's in this entire area that was not part of the New Territory MUDs, and so therefore we did not have a strategic partnership agreement with this area, and so therefore it was not annexed as part of the overall New Territory MUD and Great Wood annexation in 2017. The Maryam Center is served by on-site well and septic system, and they approached the city with their request for utility service kind of for twofold reasons. One, from a wastewater perspective, they were interested in a connection to avoid some costly on-site system upgrades and ongoing maintenance related to some future expansions that they were planning, as well as from a water connection, they were interested in a more reliable fire suppression system, as well as replacing the use of their on-site well. And as they've mentioned, they also have some future expansions planned for their property that would impact the area where their existing systems are on site. So with the terms that we outlined previously with you, the Maryam Center has responsibilities and the city has obligations. So I'll review with you first the previous terms that we had worked through. The Maryam Center would be responsible for all costs for extending the utilities to their property and any on-site lines that have to be also installed. This includes preparing and approving, seeking approval from the city of their infrastructure construction plans, as well as their responsibility for acquiring and dedication of any easements to bring lines to their property. They would also be responsible for eliminating the use of their on-site wells. Once the connections are made, they would be responsible for paying out-of-city service rate fees that are established by our city ordinances, as well as complying with all of our codes and ordinances related to new construction. Further, the Maryam Center agrees that at the point that any of their on-site expansions exceed 6 equivalent single-family connections, that will trigger the need for a regional wastewater system. At the time that that system is put in place, they agree and would be required to connect to that system. They further agree to dedicate a site and any necessary easements for that, a future regional lift station. They also agree to paying their share of costs for the regional lift station and connection fees that are again established by city ordinances. They've also agreed to submit a petition for future annexation. In terms of the city's obligations, that includes providing the water and wastewater services when the connections are made. We would also process the annexation petition according to state statutes and set a future effective date of no sooner than 10 years from the approval of the agreement. We would also be responsible for preparing a service plan outlining what municipal services would be provided upon annexation. The city would also be responsible for designing and constructing the future regional lift station. So all of these points that we've covered previously are also still within the agreement that is before you this evening. So now I'll walk through the updates to the agreement that have happened since we last workshopped this item with you in November. At that time, we expressed and let you know that the center had a preference for the city managing the water line construction project. They would, of course, be responsible for paying all of the costs associated with the actual construction of the water line. We had the opportunity to meet with the Maryam Center, and they, again, established or stated that that was their preference. And so we outlined what would be needed for that type of an approach. We subsequently also added language to the agreement that provides for this option if they elect for the city to manage the construction project. It will require a separate reimbursement agreement to be approved with the city. Since this item was before you, or at least on your agenda at the December 3rd meeting, we have moved forward with redefining the water line to allow for some different alignments to be established or determined. We've also revised the exhibit that's attached to the agreement. It no longer outlines or specifies the particular alignment, so it gives flexibility to work through with the city what are some alternative alignments that could be utilized. We've also added a time frame for the design of the water line and by when those easements must be acquired. We've also further refined triggers for the regional lift station construction. Either the Maryam Center would trigger that need, or the city could move forward with the construction of that lift station if needed. We've also outlined the method for how we would calculate the wastewater fees if the water connection is not completed at the time that the wastewater connection is ready to be connected. So all of this has been finalized in the agreement, and the exhibit has been refined, and we've received the signed agreement from the Maryam Center representatives as well. So as I covered with you before, kind of the approach going forward as we work through with other property owners, we recommend this type of approach of bringing forward an agreement. It gives us the opportunity to address several items that we feel are in the best interest of protecting the area where we don't have a lot of control within our ETJ. It gives us the opportunity to extend land use control, again, to the ETJ where we have limitations. It also is an opportunity to address limitations that have resulted from state law changes related to annexation and our inability to move forward with unilateral or proactive annexations. The revised agreement preserves all of the previous terms that we outlined with you and also provides the flexibility for the center to determine an alignment, of course, that's subject to city approval. So at this time, staff recommends City Council approve the authorization and execution of the agreement for the provision of water and wastewater services to the ETJ. Be happy to answer any questions.
Alan, you wanted to make a point?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Lisa, if you'd go back to the map.
Yes.
So this, the area that is highlighted here is what is referred to as the donut hole. It's an area that was not within a MUD and has no utility services available within it. It's not in the city, and it does not have infrastructure.
That's correct.
Will the improvements that are being made further the eventuality of bringing services to the area?
The water line could provide some additional capacity, and I would also...
The regional lift station is intended to...
Definitely, yes. It will be... the sizing of it will be studied and analyzed and be determined to what would the ultimate needs for this area.
And that's one of the objectives that we had, was to make sure that the investment that is being made wisely for the benefit of a broader area than just the immediate need.
That is correct.
Very good. Thank you.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple of clarifying questions. So relative to the changes since the first workshop, the only major change is the flexibility that it now provides for the waterline route, correct?
The waterline route, yes, and it also provides the city the ability to move forward with a regional lift station if we need to in the future.
So on the route, are there multiple options that they're going to have that they're going to be able to examine? I mean, are there truly multiple opportunities there?
Yes, there are other routes that we as staff has identified and started working through with the center as some possibilities, yes.
And then as part of what I think you called it the reimbursement of whatever management role that we play in it, are we assisting with providing the route and helping identify that and negotiating those easements, or we're not part of that discussion?
If there is something that we can do to make connections, but they are responsible for dedicating, acquiring them, and ultimately dedicating them to.
Yeah, I would just urge, as much as we can help
Sure.
with that process relative to finding the various options and then identifying which one is the most efficient, which one makes the most sense without interruption to whoever else is in this neighborhood. But
Amish, I know that our staff, Chris Stubbe and Jesse, they've worked with the Islamic Center's engineer on the initial, and they're working with them now, so we're providing that help.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm supportive of it, Mayor.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other questions? I've got a motion. I made it. Kermali's got the second. If you vote at this time, please. It passes 7-0. Thank you, Lisa. I think one of the most important things about this is, and Alan got to it, which is this was an opportunity for us to improve not only the service to the Islamic Center, quality of the water, the wastewater service, but also our building standards. So the mosque will now fall under our building standards, whereas the county didn't have any. We do. So I think it's a win-win for the members of the mosque and also for the citizens of Sugar Land. So we appreciate the partnership. Item number 5, public hearing. 5A, public hearing. Receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard on proposed amendments to chapters 2 and 5 of the Sugar Land Development Code to comply with House Bills 2439 and 3167 as passed by the 86th Texas Legislature. Ms. Lisa.
Yep, you have me again. All right. So we previously.
We'll wait for just a minute,
Okay.
Lisa.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
All righty. Okay. So we previously reviewed with you 2 new laws that have passed as part of the 86th legislative process. That was House Bill 3167, which was referred to as the shot clock bill. Relates to the processing and approval of development applications. And then the second bill being House Bill 2439, which was related to cities' ability to regulate building materials. Both of these bills became effective September 1st, and working with our legal department, we have identified that both require some amendments to our development code, Chapters 2 and Chapter 5. We had the opportunity to workshop this with you at your December 3rd meeting. We outlined and provided an overview of the changes and an outline of our approach, and the direction from the Mayor and Council at the time, was to proceed with the code amendment. At that meeting, there was also a request for a map of the POAs and POAs that cover the city. So that map is underway, and we hope to have that back to you in early 2020. So just as a brief overview of the first bill, which was 3167, this made changes to the development application and subdivision platting approval process. It requires that action on plans and plats be taken within 30 days after the date the plan or plat is considered filed. It expanded the options or the actions that can be taken in addition to approval, but also approval with conditions or disapproval with an explanation or reason. It further clarified that when there are conditions or explanations associated with the action, they must be citing a regulation or a requirement of the code. This bill also had a positive, and it further clarified the notice procedures that commission that must be taken prior to commission consideration of a residential replat. It now only requires a prior notice be given when a variance is being requested. If a variance is not requested, then notification can happen after the commission takes action. In large part, the impacts from this bill we don't envision to be huge or very laborsome. The current process and timeline that we have meet the intent of the law. Once an item is deemed filed, then we have a 30-day approval clock already for getting action from the commission. It does expand the options that can, for action, to now include approve with conditions or disapprove with reasons. And now the commission must cite statutes or code requirements for those conditions for approval or reasons for disapproval, and they must be provided in a written format to the applicant. As we outlined with you, in addition to updating the code and our internal application handbook, we will be providing a list of requirement references to the Commission. If for some reason there is something that they've identified that over time is not a requirement, we will work with them to update the code or our handbook, whichever is appropriate, to make sure that that condition or reason is something that they can cite going forward. In terms of the updates, the amendments to Chapter 5, which is the subdivision regulations of the code, we've added all of the action options to the general land plan and the plats. We've also added a consistent definition of a filing date, so that now applies to all of those plans and plats. We also clarified the public hearing requirements for the residential replats. It's now only required if a variance is being requested. And then we added the procedures for notification after the commission takes action or approval of a replat. And then there were some other minor clarifications and modifications distinguishing what are administrative plats from those that require commission action. For the House Bill 2439, this is the bill that addressed the city's inability or lack, or I guess I should say no longer being able to regulate building materials that are authorized by a national model code. The bill did outline a few exceptions, but only a few apply to Sugar Land. The main one being that areas designated as historical, cultural, or architecturally significant areas, you still have the ability to apply finish requirements or material requirements. Going forward, the impacts from this bill will be that we will have a limited ability to enforce our building finishes article of the code. Specifically, no longer able to enforce the finish requirements for non-residential buildings in our business districts and within the residential zoning districts. Our interpretation is that we will continue to enforce our PD and mixed-use conservation district and the Hill district. We feel that these all meet the intent of the law, and they were also existing prior to and established prior to April 1st of 2019, which is a specific date that was cited in the bill. We also outlined and recommend taking an aggressive position that protects the city's best interests, and we think that aligns with our city's citizens' expectations for requiring and demanding high-quality development. We will recommend keeping the text in the development code, so the actual finish requirements, but recognizing that they are not enforceable due to the changes in state law, and so we'll be recommending adding a recognition that these are not enforceable unless they are repealed or deemed invalid by action of the court. We will continue to apply the building finish requirements for non-residential uses within the mixed-use conservation zoning district, as well as enforcing special or any specific requirements that have been established through plan development or PD zoning districts. Moving forward, for any new PDs that are requested, applicants would request that PDs is established for three reasons, whether it be a historical, cultural, or architectural significance of that development. So in terms of the specific language or amendments that have that are outlined in this particular chapter, the zoning chapter, is that we will add the text clarifying the intent of the PD district is to enhance the existing or create new areas within the city that again promote the city's historical, cultural, or architectural character. And now that statement must be included in a general development plan or a final development plan application. Likewise, we've also added a section regarding the voluntary compliance of the building finishes article. So we recognize that the MUC and the Hill residential districts were established prior to that specific date, April 1st, and they were also established to protect and preserve the local heritage and visual character of those areas. With the exception of the MUC or the HR1, otherwise the regulations specified in that article are voluntary unless, again, they are amended or repealed. We workshopped these changes with the Planning and Zoning Commission in October and received positive feedback from them at that time. And then last week at their December 10th meeting, they held their public hearing and consideration and action and are forwarding a unanimous recommendation of approval to you for consideration. So with that, this item is posted for a public hearing this evening, followed by first reading of Ordinance 2187. Anticipating your approval this evening, the first time we could be back would be before you for second reading would be at your January 7th City Council meeting. Be happy to answer any questions following the public hearing.
Thank you, Lisa. At this time, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing and ask that anybody that would like to comment on this item come forward. Second call. Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll open it up to questions from the council member. Steve?
Lisa, would you just remind me on this designation of historical, cultural, etc., who does that? Does the developer that wants to build request that and therefore
yes,
have different requirements, or can we put that on a piece of property? Can we say that this piece of property in our city has historical significance to us?
If we were going through the PD process, the city has the ability to initiate zoning proceedings. So that could be, and as part of the PD application process going forward, that will need to be designated, whether it's historical, cultural, or in most cases architectural kind of character of that area is different than other areas in the city.
Swell. Thanks, Mayor.
Sure. Anyone else? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mayor, would you please read the caption of the ordinance?
Well, I will, Mary. First consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land ordinance number 2187, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, amending chapters 2 and 5 of the Sugar Land Development Code to comply with House Bills 2439 and 3167 as passed by the 86th Texas Legislature.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Carol. Do I have a second? And a second by Gandhi. Any other questions? If not, vote at this time, please. And I think we passed it 7-0. Item number 5B. Thank you, Maryam. Item number 5B. Bless you. Public hearing to receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard regarding a change of zoning from interim standard single-family residential R1 interim district to permanent zero-lot line single-family residential R1Z district for approximately 21 acres of land located at the southwest intersection of Eldridge Road and West Airport Boulevard. And we have Doug Schomburg, and we have a new guest, Laura Waller, Planner One. Doug?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to introduce Laura tonight to you. We have a tradition here at the city of introducing staff members that present for the first time with council. She joined us earlier this year, has been doing great, and has taken this item through the Planning and Zoning Commission and going to present it to you this evening.
Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Happy to be here. So to begin with, just to get an idea of where this is at, it is on the north side of town, so pretty close to the city limits. This is the city limit line here, and we have West Airport. This is the start of the Sugarland Business Park, and then Eldridge, which runs north. So the property here is highlighted in black. It is currently zoned R1I interim because it has never been formally developed or platted. So the new property owner would like to begin development, so we have to zone it permanently before they can begin platting processes. And they would like to develop R1Z, which is zero lot line or patio homes, that you might be more familiar with that term, patio home. So they have proposed this new zoning for their development. A little bit of background information. This is a straight rezoning process, so it's going to be a little bit different from what you might be used to. I know you typically see plan developments and conditional use permits where you see site plans and specific layouts. You will not see that in this case. This proposed zoning is a straight zone, so it will follow all of the regulations that are already in our development code that already exist. The R1Z does have some specifics with the siding of the house that I'll go over in just a minute. But once the rezone has been passed, the platting process begins and all of the preliminary and final plats will be approved through the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then staff will also review all of the traffic impact analysis, drainage calculations, and other infrastructure construction plans. So all of that will be reviewed. It will just be done at a staff level based on the current development codes. So some specifics of the R1Z zone. Minimum lot area is 5,000 square feet rather than 6,000 in a standard district. Lot width and depth are 50 and 100 rather than 60 and 110. And the setbacks tend to be a little bit smaller because the lots are a little bit smaller. And therefore coverage is also 50% instead of 40. The home is allowed to be a little bit bigger. Compared to the site. The one thing that is unique about this is that the home has to have more than half of the house on the property line on one side, and then the other side has to be 10 feet away from the side property line. So there is still 10 feet between each home, but a standard residential house or district has 5 feet on either side, so 5 plus 5 is 10, whereas this will be 0 and 10, so you have just 10 on. So from the street, it looks fairly similar. It's really when you're looking at the lot or the plat that you can tell the difference. Planning and zoning review. The original public hearing for P&Z was held on October 24th. We did have one public speaker who was concerned about the possibility of multifamily development or condos, and was also worried about that potentially impacting his property values. Commission feedback was mainly that we speak with the public and make sure that they know it's going to be single families, which we did at the conclusion of that meeting. I myself and the property owner representative confirmed that it would be single family residential. The zero lot line is just a specific of that type of single family housing. It's not going to be multifamily. Continuing, P&Z met for consideration and action on November 12th. We fielded a few more questions, primarily about the differences between standard and zero lot line homes, and then the commission voted a unanimous recommendation of approval for the change in rezoning. A few items for you to look at. So this is the survey. It's just under 21 acres at 20.64. And it directly abuts the Greenbrier neighborhood on the south and Glen Laurel to the west. Future land use map is supportive of this use here. It is completely compatible with the neighboring areas, all suburban neighborhoods, single-family home on both sides, and then neighborhood commercial across the streets, which would support light activity for any homes that would go into this site. A couple site photographs. We have the public hearing sign. That's a courtesy posted by the city, as well as you can see that it's mostly softwood trees that are fairly dense undergrowth. So the property is raw. It's never been developed or cleared at any point. So the main points for consideration this evening is that this was annexed in 2002 as part of the extension of airport into the Glen Laurel area, and permanent zoning is required prior to development and platting. The property has never been platted. It is completely raw. and the proposed zoning district was brought forward by the property owner with the intent to develop patio homes. It is supported by the master thoroughfare plan as well as the future land use map and is not in conflict with our comprehensive plan. Therefore, we recommend finishing the hearing and then the first reading of the ordinance followed by approval of the council. I would be happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thank you, Laura. This time we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody that would like to speak on this agenda item is encouraged to come to the podium. Anyone? Second call. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. We're going to move to first consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land ordinance number 2186, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, providing for a change of zoning from interim standard single-family residential R1I to permanent zero lot line single-family residential R1Z for approximately 21 acres of land located at the southwest intersection of Eldridge and West Airport. Laura, I'll turn it back over to you. I do know that we've got the developer here, so between you and the developer, should the council have questions, I think we can get them answered. Anyone? Himesh?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe you're going to have 50-foot lots and some 60-foot lots. Is that?
So the minimum width is 50 feet, but they can be as large as they want to.
Okay. How many, any idea how many patio homes are expecting on 21 acres?
Potentially between 85 to 90, but it's probably going to be in the 80s.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Does the developer want to answer that question?
Yes, it's about...
Go ahead. Come to the phone. Go ahead and tell us your name, and I know who you are, but tell us.
I'm George Carmichael, we're the developer. We expect to have between 85 and 90 lots, depending on the, working out the plat with the city.
Okay.
Have you done patio homes in the area also?
Not in the city of Sugar Land, but we have in the Houston area.
Which company is it?
This is Carmichael Development Company and Beeson Properties.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve.
Questions. Thanks, Mayor. How close are these homes going to be to the existing Greenbrier subdivision on the south side?
The property line will be shared, on the rear fence line will be shared.
Okay, just like a normal residential. Okay. If I understood the presentation, once council approves the zoning, nothing comes back to us. It's all done by planning and zoning. Is that correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So we don't even get to see the TIA?
Right. So the TIA is examined by staff when the plating is going through the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the Planning and Zoning Commission only see preliminary and final plats. The TIA will be examined by city staff.
Any way around that? I mean, we've worked for years to straighten out West Airport and the traffic on that particular part of the street.
Mr. Mayor. As has been our practice, council member, we would be happy to visit with you and answer any questions that you have regarding that TIA when we get it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
With that has been our practice with our district council members.
Yeah.
If that, I hope that would give you some comfort level that everything will be carefully considered.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, the difference is this is, gosh almighty, straight zoning, and I don't believe we've had a straight zoning case come through. Even when I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, it's been a long time. So, yeah, it's different than a PD. Yeah. Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve it.
A motion by Porter, second by Gandhi. You vote this time, please. You made the motion. Hand vote? There it is.
Thank
Okay.
you.
We got a 7-0 vote. Thank you. Item number 6, appointments. 6A, consideration of an action on 3 appointments to the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 1 Board of Directors, positions 6, 7, and 8, for terms ending December 31st, 2021, and appointment of a chair for a term ending December 31st of 2020. I'd submit the following names: Jared Jameson for position 6, Malvern Lusky for position 7, Laura Richard for position 8. All those terms will end December 31st, 2021. Don Smithers will be reappointed as the chair. His term will end December 31st, 2020. Can I get a motion? Got a motion by Jacobson, second by Kermali. Lane? Who got the second? It was Kermali. Got it. If you vote this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Item number 6B, consideration of an action on 2 appointments to Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 3 Board of Directors, positions 1 and 3 for terms ending December 31st of 2021, and appointment of a chair for a term ending December 31st of 2020. Submittals for terms 3, Stuart Jacobson for position 1, Mary Willis for position 3, and Steve Porter for position 2, and Steve Porter would be the chair. His term will end December 31st of 2020. Stuart and Mary will be December 31st of 2021. Can I have a motion? Got a motion by Lane, second by Kermali. You vote this time, please.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, we have...
Motion. Sorry. Kermali. Yes.
Can you clarify the positions 1 and 3 appointments again? Sorry, sir.
Terms 3, position 1 is Stuart Jacobson. Position 3 is Mary Willis.
And chairs...
Chair is Steve Porter.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Item number 6C, consideration of an action on 2 appointments to Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 4 Board of Directors, positions 2 and 4, for terms ending December 31st, 2021, and appointment of a chair. That passes 7-0. Item number C, consideration of action on 2 appointments to Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 4 Board of Directors, positions 2 and 4, terms end December 31st, 2021, appointment of a chair. That term ends December 31st of 2020. Terms 4, Bridget Young to be appointed to position 2. Her term would end December 31st of 2021. Carol McCutcheon will be reappointed to position 4. Her term will end December 31st of 2021. And Greg Sturman will be reappointed to the chair. His term will end December 31st of 2020.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by McCutcheon, second by Lane. You vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Item number 7, Municipal Court Judge Compensation Program, 7A. Consideration of and action on Municipal Court Judge Compensation Package for the period January 1st of 2020 to December the 31st of 2020. If this went through the Compensation Committee and City Council in executive session, we can't talk about executive session, but somebody like from the Compensation Committee like to talk? Jennifer?
Yes, we met with the judge and talked about things that are just simply out of his control, and really does the best that he can to make it very efficient in our court system. So we wanted to bring him up to speed with the 75th percentile with his compensation, and so it was a unanimous decision in our committee to get him up to that level.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. Municipal Court Judge's annual performance evaluation process began in September. Performance measures were provided during the review period and incorporated into the evaluation process. We received feedback from his peer group. and that was gathered and compiled for the evaluation process. Compensation data was analyzed from survey cities, basically our peer cities, gathered, and that discussion went on with the Council Compensation Committee as well as in executive session. I'll make the recommendation, it's this council's recommendation that the judge's base salary of $125,000 be increased to $131,000 effective January the 1st, 2020. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second by Kamali. Your vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Item number 8, City Council City Manager reports. 8A, City Council Member reports. Carol, let's start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'll pick out about 3 out of 30 items here. There's been a lot going on. We attended the T.E. Harmon Center Senior Holiday Gala, and boy, those seniors can dance. They had a great time, and I would like to say thank you to the staff for doing a superb job organizing this, and also attended the Fort Bend Chambers Sounds of the Season Holiday Luncheon. Frank Billingsley, the KPRC2 meteorologist and author of Swabbed and Found, spoke about his journey to find his biological family through DNA. And we also attended the Leadership and Legacy Luncheon hosted by the Sugarland Legacy Foundation. And the business winner was Acredo Packaging. And the individual winners were local restaurant owners Robert White and Victor Lentwaninko. And I would also like to thank staff for doing a great job on putting that together.
Thank you, Carol. Ramesh.
I think Carol covered it there.
Stuart?
Mayor, my head is still spinning from all the things that I attended in the last 2 weeks, so I'll pass.
No shit.
I'll add a couple to Carol's, but it's been a fun time with a lot of fun holiday activities and Telfair. They did a Santa's cookies this past weekend, and it's always an honor to help out with the Fort Bend Exchange doing their Toys for Tots drive, where over 4,500 youths were able to get toys because of individuals coming together and donating. And then Cindy and team have been doing a great job with our 60th birthday recognition, and they've had these pop-up parties all throughout the city, and I've attended a couple of those with a couple of other council members as well.
Thank you, Deshaun. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. I attended a promotion ceremony in the Sugarland Police Department. We continue to have the best department in the nation, and I'm very proud of the men and women who stand in the gap on our behalf day and night to keep our citizens safe. Attended a memorial service for Aviation Director Phil Safko. It's a humongous loss for the city. I first met Phil in the City and County Joint Zoning Board for the airport, and he was fierce as a protector and owner of our airport, and you couldn't have asked for more. I had 3 HOA meetings, First Colony Service Association, I think is their new name, Covington West and Lake Point Parkway.
Well, thanks for going to Lake Point. That was mine. I actually got there late. Jennifer?
Just what Nishad had said about the Sugarland Exchange Club. They did a fabulous job with the Toys for Tots over the weekend.
I just wanted to say again about Phil. Phil is an extraordinary employee. He literally came to work for us in 1998 when the runway, I think, was pretty much a grass or it was a dirt runway. And the airport that you now see there, and the leadership that he provided to the staff out there, they weren't just his colleagues, they were his family. He devoted his life to that airport, and we owe him and Randy, because Randy extended the life that Phil could dedicate to the airport. And we owe Randy a huge debt that'll probably never be repaid. So, same to Phil. He has Miss Elizabeth Rosenbaum carries on in his stead. He's got a great staff. They were his family. They're our family. And we'll recognize him at a later time. That's all I have. Alan, city manager report. You're counting down the days.
Yes, sir, and I'm extremely happy to report that this is the last meeting that we have this year, and that your next meeting will not be until January the 7th. So we look forward to seeing you next year.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Alan. Before we adjourn, we got a couple of Scots have been hiding back behind Rick. Could you please stand, tell us your name, your troop, and what badge you're working on?
My name is Nathan Maryam. I am part of the Troop 101 of Sugar Land, and we are currently working on a citizenship badge.
Thank you, Nathan. Yes, sir.
My name is Jeremiah Jenkins. I'm from Troop 101, and I'm also working on the citizenship badge.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
My name is Alex Campbell. I'm from Troop 993, and I'm working on the citizenship badge as well.
Well, thank you, Alex. You kind of snuck up in the front row there. I thought you were going to speak at the public hearing for a while. Yes, sir.
My name is Joseph Sanford, and I'm also working for the citizenship badge with Troop 101.
And Justice or Joe?
Joe.
Joe. Welcome, Joe. Yeah, you guys had to stay for the end of the meeting to get recognized. And you earned that badge. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We've got a motion to adjourn at 6:37.
We need to press the motion.
No, we don't need to.
Merry Christmas,